NIL Now with Lauren Sisler and Kevin Jones.
If you want to learn more about name, image, and likeness, you need to go to The Source. The NIL Now podcast from Headline Studio and Reddit highlights the biggest storylines with comments from key guests in the college and high school NIL space.
NIL is not a cherry on top. It needs to be thought about as a part of these young men and women's future to, further their careers. You should be able to leave college with something.
Subscribe to NIL Now on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Every year, thousands of human remains are found in the United States. And in one of every 4 instances, authorities can't identify the body. That's starting to change. I'm Dave Killen, co-host of The Unidentifieds, a new limited series podcast from the Oregonian and Oregon Live. We go deep into several cold cases and explain the science that's helping experts give these long-forgotten people their names back. Look for The Unidentifieds after you've finished listening to this podcast. Subscribe to The Unidentifieds on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
All right, we are back for another edition of the Terry's Talkin podcast. I am David Campbell, your host, sports manager at cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. And joining me is the author of a new newsletter that is going to be coming out, Terry. We should talk about this right at the beginning. Terry Pluto, award-winning columnist from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. We have a new newsletter, Terry. People can go to cleveland.com/newsletters. And once a week, you'll get everything from Terry Pluto in your inbox once a week. Pretty exciting to have your own newsletter, right?
Yeah, and basically they just put all the stories that I've written together in one spot. So that way, if you've missed something, if you wake up at 3 a.m. and said, I just can't wait to read some Brown scribbles, you could find out if there is some. If you missed it, it was there. Or if you're in the mood to talk to yourself like I am sometimes, you could find that in the newsletter. Or if you just want Terry's Talk, and that's in the newsletter, or if you want a dose of faith, you could find that. And one thing, usually I write enough to, give you a variety of topics, and it's free.
Very free. And if you, again, cleveland.com/newsletters. And I sign up for a lot of the newsletters we have, and it's really nice. You don't have to go looking for stuff. Once a week, all of Terry's columns will just pop right into your email, and you can catch up on anything you might have missed. So,
the danger of that is,
what
for
is the
example,
danger?
It comes out, and then in my wonderful thing, remember I wrote the column about kind of taking Stephen A. Smith to task about how the Cavs shouldn't even show up for the game 3 in Madison Square Garden and all that, and said, no, I didn't expect them to win because it's a tough situation but it's the Knicks, not the Garden. And of course, they played exactly like Stephen A. Smith predicted. So when you go and read that with the facts in front of you, it's like, oh boy.
Well,
so that'll be interesting too.
Stephen A. has been wrong plenty of times too.
I know he has,
but fandom gets in the way. But he's been on this one.
Yeah, he was right on that, and that's the big disappointing thing there. But
let's get to the Cavs here.
But here, what I meant is, it's funny because you live on the internet, in the old days, unless they kind of saved your stories, it sort of disappeared. Now it's like they could dig up something you wrote for the last 20 some years or however long the internet's been around. And so anyway, the good thing is you get a chance to take a look at them, and then you can say, boy, he flip-flopped from Thursday to Sunday on that.
Well, you write what you see, right? You're like an umpire. Yeah. So, all right, let's get into it, Terry. There's a lot of Cavs fans who are talking to themselves and scribbling after watching the weekend. There's a lot to go through here, but the Cavs are down 3-1. They're coming back home for Game 5 on Wednesday night at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. You wrote yesterday about how Donovan Mitchell, and he admitted this after the game, let the team down, didn't bring his A game.
How about a C game?
So where are you at with the Cavs,
I don't go
Terry?
off on people, but that was embarrassing because he got away. I know I'm cutting you off, but I just
no, go ahead.
Get it off. The thing he may do best is drive into the lane and get off shots or even a pass. He is so strong, his lower body. It's really hard, as they say, to knock him off the ball. And he just was content to just kind of go from the outside, and he just didn't push it. Now, granted, the Knicks, as J.V. Bickers have said, they kind of crowd the lane and make it difficult. But we saw Garland start getting in there and making plays, either for himself or for someone else. Mitchell's got he's got little floaters. He's got power layups. He can get fouled. And don't tell me they were not calling fouls. R.J. Barrett went to the line 13 times. And it wasn't simply that, New York's getting all the calls. It was that he just kept going in there. And some of the times he went in there, got knocked off the ball, and they didn't call it. But he just kept going in there. And that's what he needed to do, he being Donovan. When you're not going well, go to what you do best.
Well, not to get all hockey on you here again, Terry, but there's a play in hockey called a pass off the pads, which is where you're coming down the ice and you're not shooting to score, but you shoot the puck at the goalie's legs because he goes down and stops it. And then what happens? It's laying there and someone else can get it and shoot it in. And that's what the Knicks are doing. The Knicks are going to the basket. They're either drawing Allen up into a double team, which opens up Robinson and everybody else for an offensive rebound, or they're getting fouled, or they're making the shot. But if, like you said, if you don't go into the lane, nothing good is going to happen most of the time. So I agree. They got to get in there, and I think Mitchell is number one on that list, right?
I mean, Garland is a guy that physically it's not easy for him to go on the lane because he is so thin. But he did it anyway. That was a big adjustment they made at halftime for him, was get in there, start. And then, of course, you know what happens when there is no hockey analogy to this because there's just a few goals in a game. But when you finally get a couple balls to go through the rim, or when you're a good player and you get to the foul line, and, he's an 80% free throw shooter being Donovan, you just feel better about yourself. And so then you suddenly start making that jump shot. The other thing, analytics hate it and all this stuff. But when you're banging that 3-point shot off the rim, try to get in there and take a 12-footer. You need to see the ball go through the rim. He took 4 shots in the fourth quarter. The one he made was one little short one, and that was it. I was just shocked by that. Now we can get into they were out rebounded 47-33. I thought Jared Allen, I know he was being pulled out some of the double teams, but my goodness, he was on the floor for 37 minutes, had 4 rebounds. It's embarrassing. It just was bad. And there were times when he got the ball 5-6 feet away from the basket, and he turned around and threw it to a Coro or somebody in the corner. Go up with it. Make them foul you. And I'm tired of these obsession with corner threes. If you have a guy who's great at it, wonderful. But when you get the ball 5 feet from the basket, go up with it because, Allen is all right, even in the playoffs right now, Allen is shooting. You ready for this? You want to take a guess what he's shooting from the field?
61%.
67%.
Oh, I wasn't far off.
No, but that was my point. So he's shooting 67%. And, but he's only gone to the foul line 6 times in 4 games. Or taken 6 free throws, not 6 times. So that's probably he's gone to the foul line 3 times in 4 games.
All right, well, let's get into this a little bit, Terry. We both picked the Cavs to win this series, and the reason I did, I know you had your reasons, but I thought the Cavs had more offensive firepower, and I thought the Cavs were tougher than they're showing to be. So so let's get into the 2 parts of this. I guess the first is the rebounding. The Cavs are being dominated on the boards. Is it a lack of toughness, or do you think that it's just a matter of what we're just talking about, where the defense has been breaking down and guys are having to double and leaving Robinson and Hartenstein and these other guys open for boards? What are you seeing on the rebounding front, and how do the Cavs fix it?
The good thing the Knicks have going, which I didn't realize how powerful it is for them, is to have 2 total role players who are obsessed with rebounding, being Robinson and Hartenstein. By the way, Hartenstein blew through Cleveland among his stops at 5 different teams. That was a couple years ago. So they don't have that guy. The Cavs don't. They have starters, but they don't have a guy who just is obsessed with rebounding. And that is costing him in this. The other thing that's going on here, I believe, is you still look at it. I want the guards and small forwards to help out. The one game where they really did well in that area is when they hit the boards. I mean, right now, Darius Garland, I know he's small, but he's averaging 1.8 rebounds a game. I mean, you know who was the leading rebounder Sunday?
For the Cavs?
Yeah, to his credit.
Donovan Mitchell?
Karis LeVert.
Really? All right.
9. LeVert played like a man in that game. Actually, since his terrible first game, he's been really good. And I think he's making a strong case for himself being them needing to sign him for next year, by the way, because, who do you have coming off the bench or whatever? So, but I'm just kind of looking, Mitchell's averaging 4.5 rebounds. I'll say this. He can go and get 6 or 7 rebounds in a game like this. He can. He's out there for 40 some minutes. He can go do that. Your small forwards, I'm looking at Okoro, 1.5 rebounds. I know he's far away sometimes with Brunson, but 1.5 rebounds, he's just stuff like that. I don't see team rebounding. I mean, a guy that I'd like to see get some minutes if they're unhappy with things would be Lamar Stevens, because I think he will get in there and scrap and just cause. So that's when your big guys are having trouble, help them. Everybody go to the boards. For example, remember, we're talking offensive rebounds are getting, which meant defensive rebounds for the Cavs, which means everybody, when that shot goes up, everybody can go to the defensive board. It's allowed. It's not like, when you were a kid and you had to hit the ball to left field or something, somebody couldn't go stand in a certain area. Everybody could go to the boards.
Well, yeah, everybody does have to rebound, Terry. And just some quick numbers: in 75 minutes in Game 4, Jared Allen and Evan Mobley combined for 26 points and 11 rebounds. In 48 minutes, Mitchell Robinson, Hartenstein combined for 13 points, 19 rebounds, 8 offensive, and 4 blocks.
Yeah.
So, but I got to be fair. Like, Jared Allen and Mobley are being pulled all over the floor because of defensive breakdowns here and there, especially with Brunson out in the paint, like right below the free throw line. And that's why they're not being able to just devote their time to getting a body on somebody. Yeah, so you're right. It's got to be everybody, but it's like everybody's like, why aren't the big guys rebounding more? Well, Allen's having to step up to help. Then he's got to go find Robinson, get a body on him. Robinson's standing right under the basket. It's just there's too much going on in that paint area. It's got to start from the outside in, I think.
Allen can help on the offensive board, though.
Absolutely.
That's an area. What we're also seeing is what Dallas saw last year with Brunson. He is one of those secret superstars. Remember, it wasn't. You see now how they went with Luka and Kyrie Irving, and they missed the playoffs with that group. But Luka and Brunson went to the Western Conference Finals a year ago. And this guy, was a big-time player at Villanova. A lot of those Villanova guys, Josh Hart played at Villanova, Bridger, I think, from Phoenix. A lot of those guys from Villanova that were on those championship teams, they've become really good pros. So anyway, you're seeing that. And I don't know why, by the way, JB now opened the game with unless I was mistaken, it kept happening on switches. I don't know. Garland was on Brunson a lot early in that game.
All right, so let's talk about this for a second, Terry. So Chris Fedor, our colleague who covers the Cavaliers, actually tracked down JB after interviews last night and put a story up today on cleveland.com and asked him, why did you put Darius Garland on Brunson to start the game? Like, that seems like a bad matchup. And I want to get your take on this reasoning, but his deal was, well, they're going to be screening for him, and we're probably going to end up with Garland on him anyway. We might as well just start there, because if they do pick, then we'll be in this. We won't have to go through all that. It'll be a lot easier. And his second thing was that Darius Garland wanted to take him on and see what he could do. He said, that's a matchup I want.
Second one is irrelevant.
It is. But, in Chris's story, he mentions that according to NBA matchup data, Brunson has scored just 15 points and gone 6 from 20 against Karis LeVert.
Yes.
And against Garland, Brunson has scored 20 points on 8 of 14 from the field and 2 of 4 on three-pointer. The only worst Cleveland defender against Brunson has been Jetty Osman.
Yeah, Osman, that's hopeless.
Right.
That should never happen.
So was that a mistake, Terry, just to do that? And I guess what we saw happen was pretty much Thibodeau yesterday just started saying, "Don't screen, just let him guard him."
Exactly.
Don't even make them make the switch because we like this. So
yes, exactly, and that would be the thing too. I remember in the first game, a couple times Garland ended up on him, and I was sitting with Brian Dillick and Tom Withers, and I leaned over to him and I said, "This is like when once in a while when I was at Benedictine and I was on the JV team and I'd get to like scrimmage with the varsity kids and one of the better players would just take me down. His eyes would light up and, no chance." And that's not to knock Garland. This is not Garland's game. Garland is really good on the offensive end. And actually, he does a nice job sometimes creating deflections. But put him on Jalen Brunson, no chance. And so why do that? No, you go with your best guy. You tell LeVert and you tell Okoro you're to fight through screens. Besides, most of the time, they're going to screen with the big guy. So you'll end up with Mobley or Allen on him or something like that. Especially they're going to screen with Julius Randle. So it was a very strange, and I like JB, by the way. I'm going to end up having to fight off all the critics on JB at the end of the series. I know that. But that was really dumb. That was just a dumb move on his part. And because you have really two good defenders in Okoro, and I would argue Stevens you could throw in there too on him. You got three guys you could throw on him because now RJ Barrett went off and that was the X factor for them. But so we'll see.
All right, so we talked about the rebounding. In terms of the shooting woes, Terry, I think we've kind of touched on that. You want to see them take the ball to the rack harder and more frequently, and good things will happen from that. So that's how you see them.
Yeah, just try something. Try something. Then when you start to score a little bit, the other shots will go in. I'm just, I'm kind of looking here at some pretty sad-looking numbers, and they're shooting 30% on threes in this series. Garland's at 44%. LeVert's at 31%. My thing always is just because you're open for a three doesn't mean you have to take it. So we shall see, what goes on. I was pleased to see Okoro, going to the rim some, and because he's strong in that. So, there's a lot of things happening here, but where Donovan Mitchell should have been the great player in the series, the great player in the series is Brunson. And by the way, there's two things going on that with Evan Mobley. One is people don't give him credit. He's done a really nice job on Randle. Now, granted, Randle's playing with a sprained ankle, but Randle, in fact, it got so bad they wouldn't put Randle on the floor in the fourth quarter. The other thing is Mobley's 21. It's his second season. He hasn't been through this. And he's getting knocked around some. But he's also, who is the leading rebounder for the Cavs in the playoffs?
Is it him?
10.2 per game.
All right.
Okay.
Well, and talk about an education. I mean, after the game yesterday, he was talking about how we got to get tougher. We have to show more grit. So there's a lot of education happening here. It's just if you're a Cavs fan, you have to hope that they can figure this out by Wednesday night. So do you think we will see Lamar Stevens in Game 5, Terry? He hasn't played since the regular season finale. He hasn't been in the playoffs at all. So, no. But he did play in that last game against Charlotte.
Yeah, he played some junk time in that. I think that blowout. But anyway, it's funny because sometimes I wonder maybe I'm a little too obsessed with Lamar Stevens. He's played 4 minutes in that blowout. But Van Gundy mentioned in that game, he said, I like this guy. I think he could be a role player. Now, granted, Van Gundy likes those kind of guys, but those kind of guys is what the series is about. You have a couple stars and a bunch of guys like Lamar Stevens and Robinson and Hartenstein and R.J. Barrett and these other guys saying, well, who's going to be, LeVert, who's going to rule? So I would try to kind of find your toughest hombres for this next upcoming game, and they play. You got a couple stars, and you got your surround them with the hombres.
Well, and like they say, you don't need to win 3 games; you just need to win 1.
Sure, you do.
In it, so
yeah. I mean, look. You're down 3-1. The percentages of winning the series are like, less than being hit by lightning. I mean, it's really a long shot. But so what? Play it.
Yep. Well, we want to give a little perspective here in a minute, Terry. But while I'm thinking of it, one thing, if they do take this thing back to New York, I would like to see them not put subs in the game while the Cavs are on offense.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that there's been one time in Game 3 and one time in Game 4 where the Cavs are on offense in front of their own bench? And I think it was Mitchell one time, and maybe, I can't remember who the second one, maybe Garland. They saw somebody from the bench walk in to go check in, and they threw the ball to them. Just wait. You have enough trouble already. Don't confuse the guys who are driving down the lane looking to kick out to Evan Mobley walking to the scorer's table.
Yeah, I don't. Of course,
or have them put a different color shirt on or something.
That rim probably looked like a thimble to Mitchell, and he probably felt like he was going up against 12 guys. So we will see.
He saw a movement and he passed to it. So there's got to be a solution there. But Terry, we wanted to give a little perspective here. You've seen a few emails. I have too. The coaches need to be fired. The sky is falling. This thing needs to be torn apart. This is a letter that you got from a gentleman named Dr. Zavagno. I hope I got your last name right, Dr. And he says, "Hey, Terry, there are numerous scathing reviews about the Cavs, their makeup, horrible coaching, player performances, etc., etc. Little, if any, covered accurately prior to the playoffs. The simple fact is, as assembled, this team is going nowhere. It is painfully obvious. The question is once again how it is we talk about success and what a good team, coach, front office, and then get embarrassed on a national stage. There needs to be a lot of soul searching and blunt assessment to the facts. We are only going to get better holding failure accountable, including the coach, front office, and players." So thanks for sending that letter in. And we've seen a few like that over the last few days, Terry. What do you think when you see something like this where people are demanding change right away for a team that won 51 games?
I think chill out. Start with that. First of all, I'm tired of this thing, accountability. What does that mean? You want them fired? I'm very serious. What does it mean? It's a thing people throw around. But what does it mean? Okay.
That's all it can mean.
I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Now, if you consider a team with the average starters about 24 years old and the whole lineup is 26 or younger unless LeVert plays, that won 51 games and made it to the playoffs, going nowhere, your memory is just flawed. We saw a bunch of teams going nowhere. How about the John Beeline era? Wasn't that fun? Byron Scott and poor Mike Brown and route number 2 until LeBron came back. They were going nowhere for years. And the last 2 years, they have gone somewhere. They were on the verge of the playoffs last year with 44 wins. They went up to 51 wins this year and made the playoffs. Now, of course, they need to get more players off. See, people go from you need to fix the roster. JB needs to have some. I will agree with this about some soul searching and how you want to coach in the playoffs and that's all true. But to pretend that what they've done, I would say 80% of the teams in the NBA would love to be in a position that the Cavs are in.
No doubt.
They're not losing it. Who are they going to lose to free agency other than possibly LeVert that you would want? You could argue the Dean Wade thing flopped badly. I looked at Kevin Love. And Love for the 3 games in the Milwaukee series, the numbers are pretty good. He's averaging 9.3 points, 6 rebounds. You'd love to have that, shooting 42%. But it's kind of like he's up and down. His first game, he had 18 points. That was his big thing. The last 2 games, he's played 32 minutes. He shot 2 for 8 in those 32 minutes for 10 points and set 10 rebounds. So, it's up and down. But, in retrospect, would you rather have Kevin be thrown in this game than somebody else? I'll say this, Kevin will go get a defensive rebound. Now, they would try to put him in the pick and roll all the time to hurt him defensively, but, but I think it's minor. It's a minor point. I really do. Your stuff that you hit on and the scrambling and my theme of team rebounding is more important than whether they do or don't have Kevin Love.
All right, Terry. Do you think they win Game 5 on Wednesday night?
Yeah, just because I don't want to read the emails if they lose.
Well, I'm not going to make a prediction for Game 5 because I already made my prediction for the series. But if the Cavs go down Wednesday, they're going to go down fighting. I really believe that. I don't think we've seen the level of intensity or scrappiness or winning 50-50 balls that we're going to see on Wednesday night.
Yeah,
I think they get that now, and I think they're going to play like it on Wednesday.
And you put different guys in there to make sure that you get that. You look for your toughest guys, and you surround Garland and Mitchell and your 2 big guys when you go to the bench. And I count LeVert as one of the tough guys. And I'm looking for somebody else. I think Okoro can be, and I think Stevens, and that's what you do. And you just try to get your starters just to be. I mean, if Donovan Mitchell wants to go get 6 to 8 rebounds in this game, he can go get it. Look at his jumping. Look at his size. Get on the boards. Garland could do more than get 1.5 rebounds a game. He's out there for nearly 40 minutes. So I would just really challenge them.
Yeah, I think they're going to bring it on Wednesday. And, Terry, the Cavs are missing an awful lot of wide open shots. I don't have the number in front of me. We have a story up at cleveland.com/Cavs that it's not that they're not getting the looks. They're getting wide open looks, and they're just not making them. Mm-hmm. So if those shots start falling, then they'll be back in New York. And if they don't, then you're right. They better rebound because there's no other alternative. So, all right. Well, Game 5 is at 7:00 on Wednesday down at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. Should be very interesting. And next week on the pod, Terry, we'll either be talking about how the Cavs fought back or we'll be looking toward next season. So, want to take a break?
Yes.
Quick break. All right. Let's do that. We'll be right back on Terry's Talkin'.
Hey guys, if you love college football, we think you'll like the College Football Survivor Show. I'm Doug Lesmerises, and my co-host Shahan Jeharaja and I, each week we talk about the best programs, best coaches, best players in the sport. It's all football, no off-field stuff, no legislation. It's about the teams that are going to matter most in the playoff race. Will Georgia three-peat? Always on the lookout for angry Bama. The Big Ten, Ohio State and Michigan battling at the top and Penn State on the rise. The Pac-12 matters again, not just USC, but Oregon and Washington as well. The playoff is expanding. Expand your podcast listening. Try the College Football Survivor Show wherever you find podcasts.
We're back on Terry's Talkin'. David Campbell and Terry Pluto. Terry, we were kind of trading emails and texts today trying to get ready, and you told me today that when we talk Guardians, you have what you called a stunning stat on Oscar Gonzalez. So I'm really eager to hear what this is, so why don't you take it away?
Well, I was kind of wondering why lately he's not been playing against right-handed pitching. All right, David, he's had 27 at-bats against right-handers, and he has how many hits?
Well, I have to admit, Terry, I was doing a little research on him, and I actually pulled his chart today, and I have it here. I think he has 1 hit, right?
Yeah, 1 for 27.
1 for 27. A single.
And meanwhile, he's 9 for 28, 321 against lefties. So, but the interesting thing, so go back and we look at, well, what was he a year ago? 308 against righties, 266 against lefties. So what's going on? One of 2 things. Either they are just breaking balls away to death, where he used to hit even those balls out of the strike zone to right field hard for hits, or he's just in a total funk against righties. I mean, it's just – but in the minors, he was never known as the guy that, was really – hampered by lefties. For example, Josh Naylor, most of his career, people know he struggles against left-handed pitching. This is not a big surprise. In fact, he's 2 for 19 against lefties this year. But Oscar's been not. So I don't know what to make of it other than Will Brennan is very grateful because he gets to play against right-handed pitching.
Yeah, yeah. And you just to break it down, Terry, even against lefties, he's got 7 strikeouts and no walks.
Mm-hmm.
And against righties, 5 strikeouts and 2 walks. So,
Yeah.
we actually got a Hey Terry about this that I can bring up. It's from Darren from Sturgis, Michigan. And he has a theory about Oscar that I wanted to run past you. He says, "Hey guys, I have an Oscar Gonzalez theory. That walk-off against the Yankees in Game 3 of the ALDS last year was so electric. Oscar probably relived that one 1,000 times in his head over the offseason, as he should. It was a good pitch down and off the plate, though, and Oscar lunged a bit to poke it into center field. Here's my point. I think that success is in the back of his mind, and it's causing him to reach outside the zone, resulting in more weak contact that worked wonderfully in desperation time, but can't be his bread and butter for a season. Oscar's such a fun player to cheer for all ages, so let's hope he figures it out." That's a Darren from Sturgis, Michigan again. Thanks for that, Darren. What do you think of that theory, Terry, where he has success?
He's been swinging at balls out of the strike zone his whole career, which is why the analytics types don't like him. Remember how the Guardians were almost reluctant to bring him up. And their feeling was that he would become exposed and that kind of stuff. And I remember they were talking to me about Gio Urshela years ago when Cleveland had him. He's gone on to be a good player with the Yankees, and then I think he's with the Twins now. But for the longest time, he could not hit. He was really good defensively at third. And I remember Mark Shapiro telling me, he says, one of the problems with Urshela is it's not just that he swings at the balls outside the strike zone. He goes, he hits a lot of them, but he doesn't hit them very hard. And he finally learned a little more plate discipline and, became a good hitter. It took a long time. He bounced from not only Cleveland to the Yankees, which is where he came out. He had a medium stop where Shapiro was then running the Toronto Blue Jays. He took him over there. It didn't work over there either. So it just may take longer with Oscar. Maybe it needs a trip to the minors. But he's not going to change appreciably how he hits. What he had going for him last year is now they can measure all that exit velocity off the bat and that. I mean, he hit the ball hard, and he hasn't been hitting it hard this year. So we'll see. But, I mean, it's 1 for 27 because a lot of times he would reach out and hit that pitch to the opposite field like it was a Darren, I believe, mentioned. So we'll see. I really like him. But at least this, you look at that. So he's 9 for 28 against lefties. So you think, all right, well, let's keep playing him against lefties. See if we get some more confidence going. Because right now in the Guardians, not a whole lot of folks are hitting. And so, when you look at that as a team, do you know what their team batting average is, David?
248?
Oh, they wish.
Too high.
2-3-3. Now,
I've been reading all season, Terry, about how batting averages are up and everything because of the pitch clock and the shift going away and everything. So I guessed high.
I got to kind of take a look at that and see really how high it is. Your big thing is you got 22 games, you got 12 homers. Now, the thing that is also last year, remember, Oscar was Mr. Double because he would hit the ball in the gap. In 55 at-bats, Oscar has how many doubles?
Oh, I don't know. I'm going to say 1.
1 is the answer. That's been the answer to both the Oscar questions. So you have that. But then again, we all knew who would be second on the team in doubles. Of course, we all knew that would be Mike Zunino.
Of course. Everybody.
And,
the biggest favorite.
The man who's got the most is Jose. Because Jose hates singles, so he just runs to second base. He's fine with it, but he's always thinking singles. And by the way, Rosario is, it kind of turns, as May approaches, Rosario starts to hit. And so he's starting to hit. But I mean, Mayweather's hitting 185, Oscar 182. This is a concern because he's gotten some at bats. Gabriel Arias is 6 for 36, 167.
Well, and you mentioned Will Brennan, Terry. Man, can you think if he if he hadn't come on the scene and be hitting the way he is. I mean, Naylor's struggling. I think he's batting about $105 against lefties.
Yeah,
and
he
you got
is.
Oscar struggling against righties. It really hamstrings Terry Francona trying to make a lineup every day when you can't put somebody out there every day, depending on the starter.
Yeah, Brennan's hitting 250, but I think now when they call it the underlying stuff, he's hit the ball pretty hard, and I think for example, he's got 4 doubles. He's not going to hit a lot of homers. He's he could draw some more walks too, but Brennan's going to be a good player. But Arias, I was a little surprised they kept him and they sent down Freeman, but I think they want to continue to see what he'll do. It's an interesting kind of situation, and where you're looking at. I mean, Miles Straw's hanging in there hitting 260, so that's been a good thing, and we'll see how they hit. A couple other things I want to mention about the Guardians.
Yeah.
Are we seeing now the next wave of starting pitchers? Because Lord knows they need it. Logan T. Allen came up with a really nice start, and this is something I simply forgot to write when I interviewed Rob Cerfurlio, and he's the farm director. I've got to bring this up maybe for the weekend, because I asked him last year, I said, what happened with Logan Allen? He was so good in Double-A. He went to Triple-A and really got knocked around. And I guess I should have known this, but I didn't. They use a different baseball in Triple-A in the majors than they do in Double-A.
No way.
And he went into a of the seams, which is, Rob pitched at Yale, played 1 year of pro ball, so he kind of walks the stance between being a baseball guy and an analytics guy. He's got both going there. So I heard a lot about seams and the different baseballs. In fact, he said we do use in the minor league camp in Goodyear, they use the Major League Baseballs all the time, but they use different ones. And he said some guys, and Logan was one of them, had trouble with his breaking ball, adjusting to it. Now, Tanner Bibby, doesn't matter, a ball's a ball to him, and he just did it. But he said, we think, now this is in spring training, mind you, okay? He said, I think he'll be good. I'm not worried about him. And it was a ball thing. Maybe it is.
Who knew?
So
I mean, everything they do in the minor leagues is intended to help guys move up the system and get to the majors. It's so weird that they use different balls. Like, you'd think it would be the same.
They don't have enough money? These are cheaper balls, like when you played Little League? I mean, what is this? I don't know.
That's crazy.
But anyway, so that's what he said. So Allen's coming along. Battenfield's looked good in his 2 starts. Battenfield, by the way, is a guy they traded Jordan Luplow for. So we'll see. Now this is not the same Logan Allen that made the team a couple of years ago from the Padres. This is the guy they picked in the second round. I believe it was out of Florida Atlantic. And Allen was such a good athlete. He sometimes DH'd when he didn't pitch. So in college. So I'm interested. And of course, right below you got Gavin Williams, you got Tanner Bibby, and then finally, I hate to there, but it's Spino's. They're gonna have him see another doctor or something.
Yeah, on May 1st. So it's not looking promising.
But if you look at
this season for him,
so you go Allen, Bettenfield, and then Bibby and Williams. You might have another wave of like 4 starting pitchers coming, like a few years ago when you had Bieber and Plesac, and they had Plutko and they had Savali. Not all of them work out, but they come along. And by the way, the guy's pitched very well this year. I don't think they'll start him, but he's done it in the past. He could go 3 innings as Eli Morgan.
Yeah, I think he had the lowest ERA on the team last time I looked.
I think he's like one run in 10 innings. So,
which was surprising because he doesn't have overpowering stuff, but his location is
he's throwing a little harder, and that changeup is nasty, especially to left-handed hitters. So, so we'll see. Hunter. And by the way, Hunter Gaddis could end up in the bullpen. I see they used him there the other day, and they were telling me that kind of like. Of course, this guy got hurt. He was my guy. It was Cody Morris. Kind of like Cody Morris was last year. This big guy, throws pretty hard. He's got a couple secondary pitches. If he has trouble starting, Well, just get him in the bullpen for an inning or two. By the way, Karinchak's driving me crazy.
I don't think you're alone in that regard, Terry.
This is not good, you know. And I don't want to hear about with him. It's always something. Remember, it was the sticky substance or whatever that was. Now it's the pitch clock, or throw the ball.
Grab the right ball, the major league ball, and throw it, right?
Yeah, major league ball. You've had the regular baseball for a while, so I'm just.
That's right.
I'm kind of looking here to see what our guy has done. 12 innings, 10 hits, 17 strikeouts. But this is the stunner. With the good as stuff as he has, 12 innings, he leads the team in allowing home runs, 4. Kaboom. Okay.
All right, so the Guardians, we're taping this on Monday afternoon. Guardians are home tonight for a 3-game series against Colorado, and then they have an off day Thursday, and then they have 3 in Boston at Fenway Park. You've been to Fenway Park, Terry, I know, right?
Yes, many times.
And then they're heading to New York after that to play the Yankees. So
the worst locker rooms you could possibly imagine. It's like being in a closet.
Oh, yeah. No room.
Then you come down out of this dark little thing, and you go there, and you come out the tunnel and the runway, and you can't help it. You stare at the wall. There it is. The green monster is just there. And you do feel like it's a park where, Ted Williams and Babe Ruth and all these guys, it feels like they played there. Now, unfortunately, they keep adding more and more stands to make it get higher and bigger to sell those tickets. But there is a real romantic thing about it. A place that I also liked, is long gone, was Old Tiger Stadium.
Oh, yeah.
I did like that, maybe because I was a kid, and once that was my baseball road trip, sometimes my dad would take me up there and, watch Norm Cash and K-Line and a bunch of those guys from the 60s, late 60s play there, Jim Northrup. And so I always thought that was kind of a cool park, the same thing.
Yeah, both of those are really intimate, intimate.
Yeah.
All right, Terry, we're going to move along here. We're running short on time a little bit. Let's get into the Browns. It's draft week, and Ashley Bastek, our colleague, has a story up today about how every Browns fan knows is that draft day is Super Bowl day, usually in Cleveland, but not this year because the Browns don't have a first-round pick or a second-round pick. And you decided to do a little checking. You want to talk about Andrew Berry's success picking third-rounders in the lower and how those picks have turned out. Why don't we get into that for a minute?
Okay, so I asked Barry at the press conference because I sort of knew the answer. I said, what percentage of guys like third round, fourth round, fifth round, because I heard it's all kind of the same, become like viable in NFL starters? It could be like 30 starts or 40, pick a number. He declined to answer. He just said that it's a small percentage in that. So I went, and because I believe it was Joe Banner told me back when he was running the Browns in 2013 that the answer was about 20%. But I figured there's probably more new data out there. So I texted another top GM and said, well, what is this? And gave him the question. I said, I heard it was 20%. He goes, that's really good. He goes, but our data shows 15%. And about 30 or 35% become what he called viable role players, or, guys you want on your team. So you're kind of looking at 1 out of 3, maybe 40% total of these guys drafted third round and later do anything, and about 15% are starters. So I got between the third and sixth round, I got 16 players Barry's picked. And since they Browns, by the way, 3 picks in the third round, 2 picks in the third round, 2 picks in the fourth round, 2 picks in the fifth round, a sixth and a seventh. So, David, out of those 16 guys, how many would you think would be starters? Would you consider starters?
I mean, you could make a case. Well, Donovan Peoples-Jones, yes.
Yes.
Nick Harris, yes. He was the starting center before he got hurt.
You got to stay healthy for more than 5 minutes. No.
Okay.
I'm not knocking, but you can't stay healthy for more than 5 minutes,
All right. Well, Harrison Bryant.
Maybe.
All right.
I'll give you. There's 2 maybe. There's 2 for sure. Emerson.
See, I'm listing guys that have started, and you're listing guys that should start.
Yeah, so
right. I'm being a little too lenient.
They're decent starters, and then we'll have 2 maybes.
Yeah, Jordan Elliott, and Jacob Phillips are the two maybes after that, right?
Yeah, but he gets hurt all the time too.
Right. Okay, so what's your list? I was looking at guys who have started.
Right.
But you're looking at guys that should start. You wouldn't be embarrassed.
You put out there and you go, what is this guy in the lineup?
We're good with this guy, right?
Yeah. Emerson, you feel really good about, and I feel very good about DPJ, and I've been in that camp for a long time. Because it's like, for all the discussions on Odell and all these other things, this guy just keeps getting better. He's got size. Then you have two maybes, Elliott and Harrison Bryant. So I got 4 out of 16, which would be 25%. Probably 2 out of 16 is like, there's your 15%.
Right.
And then you get into some guys. Now, who might out of this group, and I'll read that. And when you stop me, if somebody you think could become a starter. So this is from the Anthony Schwartz class, as it's known.
All right, 2021. Here we go.
Yeah, Schwartz, Hudson, Togia, Tony Fields, or Demetric Felton. Okay, so we move right along. And there's no maybes even there.
All right.
To me, I'm not even sure how many role players are there. Hudson, maybe. They tell me Fields is good on special teams. Okay. All right. Then we go. Elliott, Phillips, Bryant, Harris, DPJ. Anybody out there you think could emerge? Oh, well, see, we already have DPJ starting for sure, and we have Elliott as a maybe.
I think from what I've seen of Nick Harris that he could be a legit starter.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw him play against Green Bay late in the 2021 season.
Yeah, that's what started
and
all that. Yeah.
Yeah, and he acquitted himself very well, I thought.
And he actually had a couple of games at guard that year too, where he wasn't bad. But we'll see. Did he have an ACL? I forgot what he had. It was a major injury. Yeah.
Yep.
Early
in the preseason.
Phillips is always something with him. It just is. Okay, last year. This is where it could be a little interesting. You got Emerson, who's the no-brainer. Alex Wright, Bell. Perry and Winfrey. A little worried about that one. Cade York and Jerome Ford.
So you're asking, I think Alex Wright might be the next one there.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you're looking at Alex Wright and David Bell as like guys who are your third or fourth options at a position. So I don't think either one.
Yeah.
Right.
But maybe you could put him in the game.
Yeah. As a rotational guy.
Yeah. Right. Which would fit in that. I still like Bell. I think that, remember he had the foot injury, just kind of got off on the wrong start. Maybe it's because I like bigger possession receivers. I might just have a bias in that area, which is why I like DPJ. I don't know about Wright. I haven't seen enough. Winfrey, we'll see how that plays out. And then there is, and I did like this guy from the moment they drafted him, Jerome Ford, and they like it too. By the way, I know Barry did not close the door on bringing back Kareem. I think it's going to take a bazooka to blow that door open. That's all. I'll just tell you that. I've heard there's nothing going on. They just feel that he needs to go, Kareem needs to go somewhere else, and they need to have Ford and then maybe bring in somebody or draft somebody else because they do need a little more depth. Now, if they wanted to bring back Dearness Johnson, I would have been fine with that.
Well, and there's money involved here too, Terry. I mean, they like Jerome Ford, and are you going to pay Kareem Hunt $5 or $7 million or whatever it's going to be?
Kareem's going to be lucky to get. He's going to be lucky to get like $2 million in a make good or something. I mean, I'm serious.
Oh, for sure. But even so, it's more than what Jerome Ford is going to make on the second year of a rookie contract as a fifth-round pick.
And if you really think so, you want to find out. And that's why, you could have signed Dearness for $1 million. I think it wasn't even all guaranteed. That's why, and he's been a good soldier. So you would have had, I would have been fine with that. You would have had Ford, you would have had Dearness, and of course you have Nick Chubb. So anyway, kind of looking at that, and if you go around, you always, Tom Brady was a 6th round pick, and okay, fine. Brian Sipe was a 13th round pick. They don't have it anymore. But for the most part, the numbers are the numbers. And really, the GMs and all that, they make their money on the 1st and 2nd round. That's where they really make their money.
Absolutely. All right, Terry. So speaking of the draft, you got. I was wondering where this came from. Andrew Berry got on a little bit of a monologue last week about geese and horses and how geese can do certain things, but we want horses because horses can run. And he basically what he was talking about was we want guys who complement each other and can do things we need them to do. But your question was the one who got him off on that, and he also started talking about preparing two quarterbacks. So
Yeah,
tell us what happened at the Andrew Berry.
Okay, well, from that
on Friday.
that was he just kept going on about my percentage thing, and then he wandered into geese and horses, and you know, geese can waddle, geese can swim, geese can fly, but they don't do any of it very well. Horses can run fast. Of course, when my dad used to go to Northfield Park, he would prove that he had a real knack of betting on the horse that didn't run particularly fast. So, not all horses are created equal. But I will say this, just about all geese are annoying and very messy. So you can kind of leave them out. It was really kind of un-Berry-like. This sounded like old football talk as opposed to the analytics guy. He's a Harvard guy. And so I kind of appreciated that. But I think what he was actually more saying, because he talked about Peoples-Jones, while he wasn't fast, had good hands, was extremely smart, and had good size. So you're looking at, does he have an NFL skill? I think that's what it is. And that's above average. So that's what you're looking at, even in the horses versus geese. And
then fitting the guys who have different skills together so you can do everything you want in an offense. Right.
So that's where he went with that.
So what about the two quarterbacks, Terry?
Well, I wrote about this on Sunday where it was kind of a thing that Stefanski mentioned, and that Deshaun suffered because we were getting two quarterbacks ready, and we had to get Jacoby ready, and their styles were different, et cetera, et cetera. I'm listening to that going, it's your job to have two quarterbacks ready. And you can go back to when Stefanski was quarterback coach in Minnesota. I think it was in 2018. Their starting quarterback was supposed to be Teddy Bridgewater that year. He blew his knee in like one of those preseason, not a game, just those workouts. Then they went to Sam Bradford, who lasted 2 games and got hurt. And then he ended up playing a year with Case Keenum, and they went to the playoffs with Case Keenum, which, by the way, really increased Stefanski's stock as becoming a future head coach. So I may add, too, the 49ers went with Purdy?
Last season, yeah. Well, there was Trey Lance to start.
Right.
Then Jimmy Garoppolo, he got hurt. Then Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt, and then they went to Brock Purdy as their third guy.
I was starting from the last to first.
I'm sorry.
I don't think no, it's fine. Those are two different styles because Lance is very athletic. Jimmy G's kind of a pocket guy, and so no, I don't want to hear this. Now you could say things didn't work out, but it was not a lack of preparation. He had 2 weeks of practice before he played Deshaun. You could argue the old Russ theory. It was 700 games in between, stuff like that. But I don't want to hear about preparation. That's your job.
Well, I mean, what's the reason they couldn't have had a parallel thing going where they've got 2 different? We see this all the time. Like you said, when a backup quarterback or a different quarterback gets put in, you have a package of plays for them, and they practice them. So, let's go.
Yeah, so I
grab the baseball and throw it, right?
Yeah, I mean, really, they have enough coaches and everything else. So I just think they're trying to take as much pressure off Deshaun as possible heading into this year to sort of diminish how he played. And look, if Deshaun comes out and really looks terrific the first 3 or 4 games, then we just say, okay, it's whatever. He didn't play for 2 years, all that stuff. If he struggles, then there's all kinds of stuff there. But I just thought that was I just would have stuck with he hadn't played for a long time.
And it wasn't about the other stuff.
And he went through a lot of stuff. You could say it's self-created, which it was, but he went through a lot of emotional turmoil and everything else. And it was just a hard year.
Well, as we know, Terry, the excuses list is getting down to 0 pretty much heading into this season. Yep. So it's go time. So
would you draft a running back?
Yeah.
Me too. Would you draft a quarterback?
Too many. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I mean,
I mean,
I don't know.
Mr. Irrelevant last year ended up starting for the 49ers and might be their starter going into this season ahead of the guy they fell all over themselves to get a couple of years ago in Trey Lance. So you never know.
You don't know. And also in general, if a guy plays a couple of years in the league, he just sticks around and he has value. So, I would look at those positions and see if there's something you could want. A lot of low-round running backs, you get a couple of years out of them. So we've
see. Talked about this. I think Bubba Ventrone is going to get to handpick some special teams guys out of this group that they'll draft, which they can use too. So, all right, Terry, we got to move along. I got to. I'm not doing a good job keeping this on schedule today.
All right,
but we're doing all right. We got time for one Hey Terry question, and before I forget, if you get a chance, send us your thoughts, send us your comments, questions, anything you want to get on the podcast. We would love to get it on. Just send us an email to sports@cleveland.com. And just put Terry's Talkin in the subject line. Again, it's real simple, sports@cleveland.com. So let's go to Chester, Virginia for this week's question from Jefferson Wolf. Thanks for sending this in, Jefferson. He says, hey, Terry and Dave, since I just heard you give the address on this week's podcast, I thought I'd send this one in. Lots of talk this year about Terry Francona and what a great job he's done in Cleveland. I was curious about comparing and contrasting the styles and personalities of Tito and Mike Hargrove, the other very successful Cleveland manager during my lifetime. I wondered if maybe Terry had some unique insight from his years of covering both managers. So, Tito and Mike Hargrove, differences, similarities. What do you think, Terry?
Hargrove had a star-studded cast of very volatile personalities. So a lot of by the way, since we're on animals, his thing was having this job is like being a duck. So we're now on the ducks. He said, you watch a duck, he's swimming, and it seems to be peaceful and the water's placid. But under the water, his feet are paddling like crazy. And that's what it's like. It's like you want to, as a manager, keep everything peaceful on top so that people don't know how hard all the junk is going on under the surface, which would have been, Albert Bell and Manny and all those guys. And he did a pretty good job with that. But Francona is the package. Francona's ability to relate to different types of personalities, it just goes across lines. I never thought I would see a better manager than Earl Weaver, who I broke in covering in '79. But I mean, Francona can talk analytics with these guys. He can do the old school baseball. He has such a heart for people that's genuine. But he's also in the right front office where they respect the kind of players he wants. And he doesn't have all the volatile personalities. John Hart was like, let's get these talented guys. Let's bring them in here. My goodness, John Hart traded for John Rocker for no reason other than he was available. So Hart's thing was, I'll get them, you coach them, And that made it difficult for Mike at times. But the good thing is Mike sometimes was able to talk Hart off of off the ledge of wanting to trade for guys or that kind of stuff. It was almost a reversal of what you see psychology, where oftentimes it's the front office that wants to keep the coach or manager from wanting to get rid of 4 guys one day. Whereas with Hart and Hargrove, it was Hargrove who was often telling John to cool it. Let's see how this goes. And by the way, Hart was a good evaluator of talent. Hart put together a really good team here. This is not a knock on John, just saying how the personalities are different. Where it seems like the Guardians, everything is so behind closed doors, you really don't know who's the guy that wants to trade 4 people and who's the calm one, because they all just come out, and they've been doing this for a decade. And they just, when they disagree, they just leave it. They really do leave it behind closed doors. And I just, I think that's one of the differences. Tito could do more with less than any manager I've ever seen. And that's not a knock on Hargrove. It just is.
Yeah, it was a different time. The thing that's amazing about Tito also is the years have gone on. He's getting older. His health is, but he still relates to a 21-year-old and a 40-year-old, like Mike Napoli or some kid coming up from the minors. Like, he's able to connect with every age group of player in a meaningful way. And I think that's what you said about Terry, about his connecting on a human level. And it's hard to do well, and he does it well.
Yeah, and then just his ability to. They're going to have a good bullpen again. He always has a good bullpen. And now some of the credit goes to the organization too, but you can mishandle a bullpen really easily, and he doesn't do it. So he's just unique.
All right. Well, I think about time to wrap up here. Is there anything you want to share with listeners about what you've been reading or doing?
I think that'll do it. We're way over our word limit.
We're way over. So the internet will hold it, though. I'm pretty confident in that. So, all right, hit us with questions, comments at sports@cleveland.com. And also, just to give another plug to the newsletter, Terry's new newsletter comes out every Monday. Go to cleveland.com/newsletters. It is free, and you can sign up. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the rest of the Cavs series against the Knicks. We'll talk to you next week on Terry's Talkin.